Hello, fellow targeted individuals. The erroneous labeling of individuals or groups as threats is often due to algorithmic biases, flawed intelligence, cultural misunderstandings, or discrimination which has been rooted within our institutions, which has severe real-world consequences. Consequences of targeting include isolation. 85% of whistleblowers that I've met suffer from health problems such as severe anxiety, depression, PTSD due to retaliation and smear campaigns. These are rates which are comparable to cancer patients. There was a guy that I read about, his name is Carl Elliott. I believe he's a scientist, and he noted that institutions prioritize reputation over truth, leaving whistleblowers professionally isolated. Also, whistleblowers, from different documents that I've read, account for a high number of suicides. 50% of whistleblowers have contemplated suicide due to relentless persecution, as seen in John Barnett's death. The system protects itself first, fellow TIs. Traditional retaliation towards targets is often masked as a criminal investigation, replacing justice with harassment. The cycle of control concerning targeted individuals is based on institutions which manufacture risk labels such as unfit for admission, public health and safety threat, bigot, terrorist, potentially dangerous, a threat to public safety or national security. They utilize terms like that to justify targeting. Some perpetrators, fellow TIs, actually believe that they're protecting national interest, not knowing that the information they have been given is coming from a black ops group or a person which is providing hyped up information, which is exaggerated due to AI and faulty intelligence. Many of these people actually believe that they're preventing attacks and protecting America while harassing families which are working all day long just to survive and take care of their kids and pay their bills. They have no ties to terrorists. Confirmed cases where wrongdoing towards targets has been noticed is the case involving Julia Davis. DHS whistleblower Julia Davis was targeted by the FBI and their Joint Counterterrorism Task Force, along with other partners. Even the U.S. Federal Marshals got involved. Now, a guy named Mike Glover was erroneously listed as a domestic violent extremist, also known as a DVE, despite the FBI's own investigation in 2020, which concluded that Glover, a decorated veteran, had no ties to terrorists. The terror designation persisted even after the FBI's internal review cleared him. The FBI, DOD, and DHS have repeatedly weaponized counterterrorism frameworks to wrongfully label whistleblowers and critics as threats, domestic terrorists, extremists. Governments often target the oppressed as problems, criminalizing poverty to divert attention from institutional failures while concealing root causes. These policy-driven activities, fellow TIs, sometimes are due to budget rules, power retention, narrative control, and biases embedded in institutions. Many of these perpetrators that are agent provocateurs just seek financial gain. They're not doing this to stop terrorism or crime. Whistleblowers disrupt this system at immense personal risk, making their protection not just ethical, but vital for a democratic country. Agents provoking harm, at times, they do fear that they could be hurt because they are severely harassing people and disrespecting them where they eat, where they worship, where they buy groceries, and they do the same thing year after year until something bad happens. Well, there's a bad side to this. A lot of these perpetrators have no idea that that person has been harassed thousands of times while eating and shopping, getting gas, taking walks by local veterans. So, provocateurs understand they're playing with fire, but assume the system will protect them when everything else fails. The discrediting of whistleblowers via mental health labels is not a flaw, but a feature of institutional protectionism. When video evidence and data evidence of wrongs emerges, the response is not an investigation, but escalation of character assassination, proving the whistleblower's central claim. The institution prioritizes power over truth. Many targeted individuals have spent years writing letters, talking to politicians, congressional affairs units. They never respond back. Police redact reports. County attorneys refuse to help. State attorneys refuse to help. And every federal agency will either slam a phone on you and ignore you. And inspector generals never respond back. One thing TIs will notice is if they ever contact like FEMA or the CIA, they won't get their Privacy Act request back. You know why? Because it's similar to like a Freedom of Information Act request, but it allows you to amend any record on yourself and to provide evidence that what is in that file is false, which could potentially stop your targeting. See, we live in a time, fellow TIs, where corrupt people can slap a label on you that are tied to some of these powerful groups which have the ability to destroy your life. And many of these clandestine characters are involved in black ops. And what they've been doing for many years is abusing cops, first responders, people in the military at times, through faulty intelligence and concealing their true motives. If you ever find yourself being harassed at a store, a gas station, a hospital lobby, where you eat food, where you buy groceries, when you're in line at a place, when you're just getting home to get your mail, if you find that you're being harassed systematically, it typically always goes back to some aspect of the government, because it's not humanly possible for police to redact reports, for federal agencies and inspector generals to ignore something like this, considering what it's linked to. And anybody which has a few years experience doing threat assessments clearly knows the potential outcome of these types of activities. What typically happens to most targeted individuals is that these people that are in law enforcement, that are in the government, when they see the proof, they don't want to get involved. And sometimes what happens to the target is they get treated like the threat and get pushed out of a community discreetly. They may start having weird encounters with a few select members of public works or parks and recreation. They may be harassed at a library. They may be harassed when they travel on the road. This is to show the target that they're not respected in the community. They may go out one night to have a drink with their relative or their girlfriend, and when they're leaving a place, some people get behind them and scream off the top of their lungs. That's to make it where you don't want to go back there no more. And then when you go back there, you notice more harassment and more harassment, to the point where it becomes obvious. So the enemy, fellow TIs, wants you to be isolated. They don't want you in church. You know why? Because if you go to church and you start establishing relationships, then you have people that you could rely on or potentially communicate with through a prayer group. And if you're telling people what you're experiencing and you have proof of it, then other people know, and that makes you more of a threat to them. Because now people are seeing that something wrong is occurring, that police aren't helping, politicians, federal agencies. So gang stalking, fellow TIs, is based on psyops and black ops. When you look at like Department of State, today. They were talking about 5 journalists which were killed. They had no comment. They're like, oh, contact Israel. They have the truth, you know? Well, Biden's administration had done some investigations and found out these people were being killed deliberately. So there are psyops which do occur within our nation, and I'm not speaking bad about Department of State, but they are a partner to the CIA. So if you ever go overseas, you may want to look at places where there's no Department of State. I'm not saying they're bad, but I have read of many articles where TIs have gone overseas and have experienced harassment by clandestine characters. And even actress Jean Seberg, she tried to get away from her situation, and many other people. And they were targeted overseas through embassies, people that work there. I'm not saying Department of State participates in this, but they are, of course, aware that there are targets and that agencies are utilizing embassies to target people overseas. If you're in this, fellow TIs, you really have to take time to get away from your problems and just try to enjoy the moment. The enemy does not want you to enjoy your life. And I've mentioned in a prior video and even other ones, there are documents where it talks about the FBI and other agencies telling veterans, make their lives unbearable, make them mentally sick. And you'll notice a lot of these people that do this are tied to veterans groups. They have paychecks where they're getting $5,000 to $10,000 a month. And they're doing this to somebody which doesn't have anything. So the enemy wants you isolated. They want you to be in a situation where you're angry, you're fed up because you're being harassed by a lot of people. In such a situation, if you cannot leave, take little road trips, go for a bike ride, get away from your community every once in a while to heal. And when you have the money, when you have the skills, when you have the power to leave, when you leave, try not to come back. God bless. Just say no to violence. Just say no to domestic terrorism. God bless. Peace.